Hi, Scott. Welcome. I want to welcome everybody who just came in the last few minutes. We're going to be waiting just a few more minutes before we get started. Should be around 3 o'clock. We'll get started with this webinar.
You turn up the sound a little bit.
Well, there's nothing happening right now. And I don't know if they can hear us.
We can, if that's best user best is speaking right now. We can hear you. Yep.
Oh, great. He can hear us.
Oh,
Can I do a mic check? Can you
Yep,
hear me?
we got you.
All right. Cut that out of the recording when you get there. Hi,
I'll see
Lisa.
if I can do that. She went to grab something quick.
I'm back.
Welcome everyone who's just joined us. We'll just wait another minute or two and then we'll get started. Okay, we just had a couple more people join in. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started with our webinar today. I want to welcome everybody that's joined us. We're excited to have this, our 5th webinar presentation. My name is Jason Lyons. I'm the policy specialist with the community integration and settings team and employment team with DSPD, and I'll be introducing things today, and then we'll be hearing from both Lisa Wade with the Parent Center and then Bryn Peterson, who is works with me on the community integration and employment team. So hello again and welcome to the Tools to Plan Support webinar series for families. We've designed this particularly for families who are on the DSPD waitlist, but everybody's welcome to participate. This series is a collaboration between the Division of Services for People with Disabilities, the Institute for Disability Research, Policy and Practice, and the Family to Family Network. We wanted to review a little bit about the purpose of this workshop series. DSPD always wants to connect families on the waitlist to resources and support outside of DSPD that they can access while they're waiting. Of course, each person is going to have different needs and resources in each of their communities. We hope to help you discover the resources in your community and plan for when you do receive DSPD services. When you come into DSPD services, you and your loved ones will participate in what is called the person-centered planning process on a yearly basis at a minimum. The person-centered planning process is an individualized approach to planning services and their supports to help a person achieve their goals, get the life that they want for themselves, and help them reach their vision of a good life. PCP places the person at the center of the planning process as the expert of their life, interests, and talents. It will give families and individuals practice in PCP, not to mention PCP is just a good practice. It can allow for a more focused approach to treatments, provide a roadmap for where you are heading, and give a consistent plan for everyone to work towards in medicals, home, and school. All of these tools are ones that we here at DSPD encourage. The OnePage profile captures a lot of the important information about a person on a single sheet of paper under 3 simple headings: what people appreciate about me, what's important to me, and how best to support me. And it can be used in a number of ways, and it was presented in our first webinar. CTLC supports person-centered planning, and CTLC is Charting the Life course, which is a set of tools made by people with disabilities and their families so that people could write, draw, or talk about what they want and need for their futures. The tools help with having interactive conversations and visually organizing thoughts and ideas. In previous meetings, we discussed the life trajectory, life domain vision tool, integrated support star, and tools for exploring decision-making supports. The relationship map helps you to look at the people who are involved in an individual's life. And the good and bad day tool helps you to learn what is important to the person, both what must be present in their day and what must not happen. Once you know this, you can agree on actions to help the person have more good days. The good day, bad day tool helps you to have conversations about what a good day or a bad day is like for a person, from when they wake up to when they go to bed. Today, we're going to discuss a combination of tools that can be used together for family members called the Life Course Portfolio, and then connect that information to a planning tool DSPD has offered to each working age individual called the DSPD Employment Pathway Tool. Today is the last of a series of 5 monthly meetings that we've provided to describe person-centered planning tools. And in 2 weeks, on May 24th, we'll hold a drop-in hour for you to ask any questions about the tool we'll go over today, or any of the tools in our previous meetings. If the drop-in hour doesn't work for you, call the Utah Parent Center if you have questions. This meeting and all the others have been recorded and will be available on the DSPD webpage under the Individuals and Family tab, under the heading Services, and then click on Person-Centered Planning. And I'll put the link in the chat once we move on to Lisa. The drop-in sessions will not be recorded as they're individualized to those that are on the call. At the drop-in session, you can ask questions or get help troubleshooting some of the issues you've had using any of the tools. And there's the capability of breakout rooms to get one-on-one assistance if needed. Representatives from DSPD will also be available to answer questions and provide support. If you have any additional questions, please contact the Utah Parent Center. And I'm going to hand it over now to Lisa Wade to review some of the tools we've previously gone over.
Thank you, Jason. And as Jason said, my name is Lisa Wade, and I do work for the Utah Parent Center. But my most important qualification is that I am a mom of a young adult who has intellectual and developmental disabilities. And he's brought me on an amazing journey, which brings me here to you today to talk about these tools that I am a huge fan of. So one of the tools that I'm going to review today, I'm not going to review all the tools that we've taught over the last few months, but the tools that I'm going to review today are ones that are going to be repurposed as we talk about employment. So one of those tools is the OnePage Profile. And this puts all the information, all the most important information about your loved one on one page. And you could find templates online, by Googling it. There's also a link from the DSPD Person-Centered Planning page. And my favorite templates are found on Helen Sanderson Associates, Sanderson with an S. They're a person-centered planning organization out of the UK, and they have some great templates of one-page profiles. These profiles can include, thank you so much for putting that in the chat, Jason, you're great. You can use written words, pictures, icons, whatever works for the individual, and they can be used in multiple ways for introducing to a new school class, an employer, friends, training staff or family members. There's lots of different ways that you can use your one-page profile. The next tool I want to review is the Integrated Support Star. And this is a Charting the Life course tool that helps you think about the different areas of resources that you have available to you in your life. And sometimes we just think, oh, we just need that paid support, right? If we could just get off the waiting list and get that paid support. But there are other resources that are available to everyone. The first place you should look is at personal strengths and assets. Then you should look at your relationships. What relationships do you have that can provide support? And of course, eligibility specific supports are included, but also look at your community resources as well as technology. Technology has become a great support. And I know I use technology to get me through the day, and I'm sure you do as well. So the Integrated Support Star helps you visualize all the different kinds of support available to your loved one. Another tool that we're going to talk about today is the Trajectory Worksheet for Planning. And this is used to facilitate an open conversation about what it takes to make a good life and picture that long-term vision for your loved one. It gives you a chance also to discuss what an individual does not want in their life and what experiences have occurred that may negatively influence their future. Because remember, what happens to us in the past will impact our futures. So you can think about, what has happened and how can you overcome that? This column on the far left of this worksheet talks about those past life experiences. On the top, what ones will help you get to your vision, but what on the bottom, those are the experiences that will lead you to what you don't want in your life. The column in the middle is the place to put your steps, your goals, the objectives that you want to be working on that will help you move forward to reach that vision. Or conversely, on the bottom, you would write those things that might be barriers to you reaching what you want or might lead you to what you don't want. And that's what goes on the column on the right, the vision for what you want in your life. Or at the bottom, you write the things that you don't want in your life. And sometimes that's an easier place for people to start, is to start with what they don't want in their life. So those are 3 tools that we're going to repurpose today to talk about employment. So let's talk about the family perspective on employment. And it's a tool that was adapted from Charting the Life course by Employment First Massachusetts. And it's a portfolio in that you can print it out. It's a front and back of 2 pages, but then when you fold it, it makes a little booklet. So it combines the one-page profile, the integrated support star, and the life trajectory into one great document that we're going to talk about today. And if you notice, Jason keeps putting links in the chat for you so you can actually go look at it right now if you want to see what it looks like. So I want to explain what charting the life course is, because we keep throwing out this term and you might not be familiar with it. So next slide, I will give you a brief overview of the Charting the Life course framework. And this was developed by families of individuals with disabilities and people with disabilities for individuals with disabilities, but it's a universal design, which means it's applicable to everyone. In fact, I was in some meetings last week for business, and we used a trajectory to talk about some of the goals that we wanted to achieve as part of our meetings. Charting the Life course, their core belief is that all people have the right to live, love, work, play, and pursue their life aspirations. So they focus on all people and think of individuals within the context of their families and communities. We are not islands on our own, but we live our lives with our families and our communities, and our families can be, you know, any makeup of our choosing sometimes, right? Charting the Life course wants you to think about your life across a variety of life domains, meaning your what you do during the day, where you live, your health, your engagement in the community, your social life, your spiritual life, and not just health and safety, which is a lot of times what we as parents of individuals with disabilities, we kind of focus on that aspect. They also want you to consider a lifespan, not just this moment or the next year, but you know, what's happened in the past and where will that lead you in the future, because it's all interconnected. And looking at what life outcomes you want, what do you want to achieve? They want you to integrate your services and supports throughout your life, wherever you might be and wherever you might need them. A lot of times in the service system for those with disabilities, they get kind of a wraparound from those who are service providers that keeps them from their community or keeps them from their family. But Charting the Life course encourages individuals to get out in their community and receive supports wherever it is that they are. And these tools are free to access at lifecoursetools.com, and they have a whole lot of videos and resources and supports there to help explain more about these wonderful and highly versatile tools. If you can't tell, I'm a big fan of these tools. So now that we've talked about Charting the Life course, let's talk about this portfolio that we've been talking about. So the portfolio is called The Family Perspective on Employment. And this presents three very familiar Charting the Life course tools with a few tweaks, a few differences in the tools, especially from the ones that as we've been discussing them in these webinars. And the biggest difference is these tools are meant to be completed by the parents, the family members. And we've been telling you, oh no, we want you to engage your loved one with disabilities. But in this case, this particular portfolio tool is for family members to fill out on behalf of their loved ones. Another difference is that instead of having one tool on a page, we've got 3 tools on 2 pages. So it's a little bit more concise. Now, if you visualize what you're looking at on the screen folded in half, the OnePage profile would then become the front of the document, and the integrated support star would become the back page of the document. And on the next slide, we'll show you what's in the middle, but don't go there yet. Some additional differences show up in the instructions that gives you that real focus that this is for employment. And this is to remind you the purpose of this tool. For example, the integrated support star, instead of personal strengths, that green at the top, that kind of teal point of the star, it says personal strengths and assets for reaching job career goals. And the relationships in that purple on the right, again, relationships for reaching job and career goals. And the same thing with eligibility specific supports, community and technology supports. Those are all to be focused on how they can help you reach your job or career goals. The questions on the OnePage profile are also tweaked to focus on employment. They include the first question, which is, what are my family members' skills, positive traits, and interests to help them with employment? And the middle question in orange on the form is, why do I think it is important for my family member to work? And that is a very interesting question to ponder on if you haven't really thought about your loved one working. And then the third question at the bottom is, what are the best strategies to support my family member with employment? And then that is broken down into 4 additional sections, which are what supports work well and what does not, how do they learn best, what helps them stay motivated, and what is the best way to encourage them. So the wording and the format on this tool helps encourage family members to think deeply about their individual and about how employment could affect them and their family. So the next page, or what would become the inside of the portfolio, is this trajectory for the family perspective on employment. And it looks a lot like our trajectory for planning, that I just reviewed with you a second ago. But this is meant to be filled out by the family members, and the labels and the questions on the tool reflect that focus. For example, the vision of a good life says, my vision for my family members' good life and job/career. And that's broken into 2 sections. The larger section, which is my vision for my family members' job/career. And then that smaller section, my vision for a good life for my family member. So even though this tool is meant to focus on employment, you cannot pull that away from the larger vision of a good life for an individual, right? You have to consider it in that context. Employment supports that good life. The box on the bottom right is what I don't want for my family members' good life and job and career. And again, the 2 sections are what I don't want for my family members' job/career, and the smaller box, not what's not a good life for my family member. Again, you always want to keep in mind that good life when you're thinking about employment. On the left-hand column is where we put our past life experiences. And again, the instructions are changed a little bit to focus on employment. They say, list past life experiences and events that have prepared or supported my family member to get a job/career and be a good employee. And then the bottom half of the column says, list past life experiences that may have prevented my family member from reaching job or career goals or led them in an unwanted direction. And then that middle column of moving forward states, list specific steps I would like my family member to take toward reaching their job or career goal and how I might be helpful. I appreciate that this tool asks me as a family member to take some responsibility for what happens with my loved one making progress towards their job or career goals. And the bottom half of that column says, list potential barriers or things to avoid that might get in the way of my family member reaching their job or career goals. Now, sometimes, and I can say this because I am a parent, sometimes we as parents become the barriers to our children achieving and reaching their job and career goals. We want to keep them safe. We want to be able to protect them as much as we can. But there are so many wonderful benefits of employment for all individuals, including our loved ones with disabilities. So I beg of you, don't be the barrier to your child being able to get some employment. Okay, so a moment here, I'm going to show you an example, and this is me being honest and vulnerable because this is the portfolio that I filled out for my son. And I did not do it with the thoughts of, oh, I'm going to put this out in this training and let it be recorded and seen by hundreds of people potentially. But these are my real thoughts and my real ideas. And so this is me being honest and vulnerable and open to you. And I also want to take a minute to just say that I, as a parent, always hoped that my son would have a job, but I had really low expectations that that would ever happen. My son has so many great skills and abilities, but he has these behaviors that always seem to undermine every good thing that we would try and do, every good program we tried to get him into or whatever. His behavior would just undermine it. He has language, but it's only basic. And I should also say, I did talk to my son and get his permission to talk about him today. So he knows that I'm doing this. So his language is very basic and he only uses it to get his needs met. He doesn't have conversations or share feelings or ideas or, here's what I did today. He elopes, not to get married, but just to take off on his own. And he's a danger. He doesn't know safety rules. He can be aggressive. He can have meltdowns. And I could go on, but obviously he is not the poster child of someone you would say, this person would make an awesome employee, right? He's got some issues and some barriers to employment. And this webinar is not about my son and our life, but I just want to give parents hope. My son is able to work. He is able to hold down a job, and it took work. It took, on our part, it took 2 years of focused work on employment to figure out what his skills were, what his interests are, what his perfect employment environment would look like, matching him to an industry, just figuring all that out and finally getting him an interview. And he was hired to work in a movie theater, which was a perfect job for him. And he worked 3 hours a week, which is not much, but it was about all he could handle. And he held that job for 3 years until the pandemic shut down the theater. And since then, he's found another job, and he works at Dollar Tree, and he really likes it. And he can actually work there twice a week for 2 hours a shift. So he's upped his tolerance for work for an extra hour. And he's done great and amazed me. And I'm just so proud of him. Dan Baker, I heard him speak once. He's an expert in employment for individuals with disabilities, especially those with more challenging behaviors. And he once said something like, employment can be a behavior intervention for people with challenging behaviors. And that's what we found with my son. He rarely has an issue with his behavior at work because he loves it. He knows it's meaningful. He gets so much out of it. He's responsible. It's just been a really great thing. So just wanted to give you a bit of hope. And now enough about me and my son. We're going to talk about the portfolio. So when filling out this portfolio, you're going to answer the questions to the best of your ability. Now that second box, why do I think it is important for my family member to work? If you haven't thought about that, that could be a really difficult box to put anything in. So ponder that, think about it. And I would suggest that whatever reasons it's important for you to work or for other family members to work would also apply to your loved one with disabilities. For example, I love my job because I feel like I'm making a meaningful contribution to something that's important. And I know that my son also enjoys doing something meaningful that benefits others, and he gets a real feeling of satisfaction from that. So that bottom section of the strategies to best support my family member with employment is a great section to share with your vocational rehabilitation counselor, with an employer, a job coach, a coworker, or anyone who might be supporting your loved one at work. In a few sentences, you can outline the best way to support your loved one to be successful. So this is a great tool to use as a maybe training piece. Just take that last section and share it with others. Okay, let's talk about the integrated support star. The integrated support star helps you organize in one place all the possible resources that you can tap into to find employment for your loved one. What are the strengths and assets of your son or daughter? What do they bring to the employment table? And what do they have or what do they do that can help them with employment? When you look at relationships, think about those you could tap into that might help find employment for your son or daughter. We often find jobs through people that we know, through networking, right? As opposed to just answering ads, especially those entry-level jobs. So my first job was working at a fast food place that was owned by my sister's brother-in-law, a connection. My next job was at a clothing store that a friend worked at, again, another connection. And those connections are what leads to employment. So who do you know that owns a business or that works in the industry that is of interest to your son or daughter? Let's talk about eligibility-specific resources. Vocational rehabilitation is available to all individuals with disabilities. DSPD services are not a requirement. And in the past, DSPD has had some supports available to those on the wait list for jobs. I do not know if that's still the case. Bryn, thumbs up, thumbs down?
Depends would be the answer. Depends on the situation. Yeah.
So there's a definite maybe in that case.
Yes, definite maybe. Yeah.
Places in the community that your family accesses frequently can be a great resource for employment opportunities. For example, the movie theater that we went to frequently is the place that hired my son. And the store that I go to once in a while, I was there and noticed that they were having a hard time getting the product from boxes in the aisles to the shelves. And so I asked the manager if they would be willing to hire somebody with a disability. And that led to my son being able to work at his current job. So just ask. What technology does your family have or does your loved one use that can help them with employment? Do they use an alarm clock or get up with an alarm? A task list, a schedule board, or a to-do app? That's what I use on my phone. There are lots of ways that technology can help an individual at work. And I have to cough just a second. Sorry, allergies are doing me in. The Job Accommodation Network, or it's askjan.org. So Jason, if you can type askjan.org in the chat box, thank you. That's the place I always go to look at accommodations, and they let you know the accommodations that individuals can ask for from their employers to be successful at work. And these can be free or inexpensive ideas. I mean, obviously some are more expensive, but some are very inexpensive. For example, my son has this board that helps him fold up t-shirts perfectly, and he uses that when he volunteers at the aquarium. So that would be a piece of assistive technology. Vocational Rehabilitation and the Utah Center for Assistive Technology, or UCAT, which is under the umbrella of vocational rehabilitation, can also give you some great ideas for ways to use technology at work for success. So that's the 5 points to start. So let's talk about the vision. What's our vision for job and career? So when I think about what I want for my son for his job or career, it's the same thing I want for myself and everyone else in my family, that they can do meaningful work and be accepted as contributing members of their community. As part of my vision of a good life, again, this is what I want for all my children. I have 4 kiddos. They're all adults, but they're my kiddos, that they can enjoy the things that are important to them, live as independently as possible, have a caring community around them, and find satisfaction and meaningful connection. I don't want my son to spend his days doing things that don't matter to him or to anyone else, and that he never feels that he's accepted as someone who can contribute to the greater good, but that he's just a job or a burden for someone. What I have found over the last few years that my son has been working is that employment has definitely impacted his trajectory towards his vision for a good life in very positive ways. Work helps him to be more independent as he takes responsibility for his duties and for his little uniform that he wears. He may not interact much with his coworkers, but he is aware of them and they have come to appreciate him. And I love that he is part of a community that is outside of his family. So let's talk about goals and past experiences. Thank you, Jason. So this portion of the portfolio allows you to consider things that you have implemented in your home or other life experiences that have helped prepare your son or daughter for employment. And this can be such things as household chores and responsibilities, education opportunities, service or volunteer work, etc. And I didn't say, but that little circle in the middle, you could put, it's a spot for you to put the individual's name, just FYI, if you want to do that. And I'm going to cough again, excuse me. So there may be things that have happened that can be a barrier to employment. This can include behaviors or events or conditions or experiences that can prevent or discourage you from seeking employment for your loved one. The list of possible barriers for my son is long, but I didn't want me to be on that list of barriers. I admit, as I said before, I had pretty low expectations, which could have been a barrier, but I wasn't unwilling to try and test new things out. So I encourage you not to be a barrier to your loved one. And I love the moving forward column. Thank you for your patience, because it gives me a list of concrete things I can work on with my son. I love a good checklist. Right now, we are working on connecting the money he earns at work to purchasing power. so that he wants to work to earn more money. He right now works, yes, he earns a paycheck, but he doesn't work for the paycheck. He works for the rewards he gets outside of that. It's a different reward system. And I'm trying to connect the two. And it's not easy, but I hope that the end result will be worth all of this work. So that is what the portfolio looks like. We've just gone over a whole lot of information about the family perspective on employment, what it looks like, the different ways you can use it. And so I wanted to just check in and get your thoughts. How do you think that filling out the portfolio can benefit you and your loved one? And what concerns do you have about the family perspective on employment portfolio? And this is your time to interact, throw stuff in the chat. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I'll tell you, because you have seen, I filled this out for my son. And when I did, it felt energizing and empowering. Things that I had thought, I had a chance to write out. So I put those things in writing, the things that I've believed all along. And I was so excited about it that my son is currently in DSPD services. So I sent it to his support coordinator because I want it to be part of his record. And as we update it and change it, we'll continue to add it to his person-centered planning record. I also, as I was preparing for this workshop, thought I need to have my husband fill out this portfolio for our son, because I guarantee he will have very different perspectives than I do. And I think it will be good for us to put our perspectives together, and that will help us have the best outcome for our son, that we can work together, be on the same page, and help our son have the best life possible. So what thoughts do you have? And I don't know if you're brave enough to put them in the chat. Give you one more minute. Okay, Carrie wants to see the portfolio. So there is a link up in the chat. Maybe Jason, you can
Jason, do you want to share that one from the DSPD website as well?
Yeah, I put it in there earlier, but let me get it in there again. Yeah, I know
Yes.
I've thrown a lot of links out.
Yeah, so they can get to the right one.
Yep, let me grab it here again for you.
And this particular portfolio is not on the Charting the Life course website, lifecoursetools.com, that I could find. We took it from the Employment First website for Massachusetts, but it's there free of charge, and DSPD has loaded it onto their website, so it's available for us. But here's your challenge. And Carrie, yes, hopefully you can access it now. I challenge you to take a few minutes and fill out the family perspective on employment portfolio. And remember, you don't have to be with your loved one to do it. You can just do it on your own, unlike the other tools. So see what comes of it when you take the time to fill it out. And Ashley, I am with the Utah Parents Center. Family to Family Network is my project, but I work at the Utah Parents Center. There's a question, would filling out the portfolio be good if you're trying to decide between employment and school? And I would say yes, because even if you do have more school, eventually you'll want to get a job. So it will help you guide towards that final goal of the job that you're looking for. And job/career, right? Depending on what stage you're at in life, you might just need a job, but some people are ready for a career, and maybe more school would lead you to wanting a career.
Lisa, can I add something there?
Oh, please, Bryn.
Okay, thank you. I think too, vocational rehabilitation has some tracks and help for jobs, but also supports someone to go back to school as that career goal, exactly like Lisa was saying. So as you meet with VR and access those resources that are available to everyone, then maybe you're looking more towards school and less toward that immediate job that's in the next couple weeks, right?
That's a good tip. I put my email address in the chat, so you're welcome to reach out if you have any specific questions. And remember, we do have the drop-in session on May 24th from 10 to 11, where you can get questions answered or just support or kudos for filling out these tools.
And we'll have a link to that meeting sent out the same way we had the one for this sent out as well. And it should be on the flyer. If you received the flyer in the email, you should have the information for that drop-in hour.
Right. So I think we're ready to move on to the employment pathway tool. So I will turn the time over to Bryn Peterson.
Thanks, Lisa. Great to be with you, and great to kind of see how all of those Trying the Life course person-centered planning tools could work together. Jason, thank you for the introduction as well. This was fantastic. We'll see if there's probably a few spots in this presentation I'm going to give today where I'm going to be a little bit more open than normal as well. Maybe that's just a benefit of these tools. We'll see. Anyway, happy to be here with you and excited to share a person-centered planning tool we developed, DSPD developed, called the DSPD Employment Pathway Tool. As maybe an introduction, this tool walks anyone through a guided conversation on employment. The tool starts with this general discussion about any of you or your loved one's interests, preferences, community activities, and even community participation or skills. Then as you continue to discuss, the conversation will focus more on employment, and community-based interests and what supports would be needed to have a good experience in that environment and to have that positive community experience in those settings. If you want to go to the next slide. So we did want to quickly explain why we created this employment pathway tool to be a companion for any other person-centered planning tool. Lisa expertly discussed how the portfolio can help prepare a family for an informed choice discussion. Specifically today, the subject that we're using is employment for that portfolio. But once the family members have completed the portfolio, the DSPD Employment Pathway Tool can be used to walk each person through a guided conversation about their employment interests and desires. The reason we created the tool was to help each person to reach informed choice, as that picture on the right of your screen says. Informed choices are educated choices. To make that educated or informed choice about employment, we need to be provided with accurate information and current information. We need to explore all options available, and especially to have some hands-on experiences to know what that could look like and to decide what we want to do. Everyone uses this or a similar approach for any big decisions. So this isn't just a disability-specific approach, right? Maybe it's a big decision about moving to a different city, a big medical decision, a decision about continuing or starting school, as we just kind of heard, and others, and certainly connected around work as well. The tool provides informed choice for jobs that are competitive and integrated. When you hear people say competitive and integrated employment, or CIE, you might hear that from time to time in meetings. That means jobs that are open to everyone in the community. These are jobs where you are paid above minimum wage, and a wage that is the same or close to a coworker without disabilities, and a job where you are working alongside people of all abilities. So you might have coworkers with disabilities, but also other coworkers who don't have disabilities. Each person will be in a different place on their path or journey to employment, right? We're all in a different place. This pathway tool is flexible. It offers just suggestions for conversation or for next steps. But you are encouraged to ask your own questions, right? Personalize the conversation and free to come up with plans that are not included in the suggestions. If you want to move to that next slide. So that's sort of the introduction. The tool starts, though, by asking this basic question at the top of the slide, right? Which is, what pathway is right for you or your family member or your loved one. The pathway tool has 4 pathways. The person chooses just one of the pathways based on where they are right now with employment. So the first option is pathway A. The person is unemployed right now, but interested in one of those competitive and integrated community jobs in the future. The next option is pathway B. The person is unemployed right now, and at least at this time is not interested in a competitive and integrated community job. So that is one of the pathways you can choose. The third option is the person has one of those jobs in the community, but wants some kind of change there. They want more shifts, maybe different responsibilities, maybe a second job, maybe another kind of change that I didn't list here. And then the fourth one is that the person is happy with their situation and simply wants to maintain the job and continue to grow in their career. So those questions are there to help you to solidify that and make sure that that's the case. Pathway tool asks you, oh, sorry, you're good. Pathway tool asks you to look at each of those 4 pathways and choose one, and then move to more focused conversation questions connected to each of the pathways. Okay. So each pathway has different questions based on your current situation and your desire to work, right? We ask the questions to help you or your family member as the job seeker to fully understand your decision and really to kind of think about what work could look like for them. Above it is an example of what the tool looks like under one of the pathways. We gave a few screenshots of this tool on the next 4 slides so you could just see how the information in the tool is organized. I say that because absolutely you shouldn't feel like you need to read any of the words in these pictures. Again, it's just to give you an idea of what each of the sections looks like. So each pathway has some suggested questions based on your situation and a box at the bottom of the page to record thoughts and answers. The questions you or your family member are asked and the answers you give should help everyone to understand more about what you and more about you personally, right? And what work could look like for you. You or your family member might be asked, what things are you good at, right? That's one of the questions that's there. What are your skills and abilities, or what would you like to learn? These are just, again, some suggestions. If the person leading the conversation knows you or your family member well and wants to ask different questions or ask questions in a different way, or if maybe you're the person participating and answering these questions and you want to communicate something that does not fit under a question that was asked, feel free to adjust and express your thoughts. It should be flexible that way. We're just continuing to describe those questions and discussions here in the pathways. The picture on the screen is from another pathway. And again, you don't need to read the words there, but each pathway has different information. As the discussion continues, you or your family member can expect to talk about all the options that might be available. You might also have family, friends, and others who support you or your family member to work together to understand all the current and accurate information that's out there for work. Also, I think it's important to say if someone's not interested in working, that's fine, right? Those conversations in that pathway usually shift to questions more about what other community activities they would like to do instead. So what's the alternatives? From the conversation, the next step is to develop a plan, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. Same instructions here. You shouldn't have to read the text, but this gives you an idea of what it should look like just a little bit. So after you or your family member moves through those questions about what work could look like, the last section simply answers the question on this slide. What happens next? What do we do now? Screenshot on the slide provides that visual suggestion of what some of those next steps could look like. And these are just examples. I think for the group here today specifically, that right column about vocational rehabilitation might be most helpful. Information in the person-centered planning sections has some great suggestions as well on goals, activities, and other options. Again, all we're doing here as we wrap up this conversation is discussing and writing down, where do we go from here? What are you, your family member, your loved one, and others that support that person planning to do next? If you're not interested in a job, or if anyone is really unsure about work, right? If we're just not sure what should happen next or where we want to go, some of those hands-on experiences to expose you to a few different job opportunities can be very helpful to make that choice. If you or your family member are interested in working, how will the family, friends, school teachers even, and others that support the person help to reach those employment goals? Okay, excellent. A few more thoughts as you're kind of developing that plan for employment as a family. We talked about on that last slide, working with all your resources to come to agreement on some employment goals. Maybe those are big or small, long-term or short-term. After aligning your employment goals, the plan could lead to thinking about how to connect with and use the resources available to you. Plans and interests can certainly change at any point, right? Hopefully you can use this tool often and update it as things change as just a part of life. I think the last statement there is just to continue to be open to new interests and explore new or expand on existing areas of interest and having those new experiences. And then I think it's important to talk about that there's a lot of information on some of the other person-centered planning tools that you've done over the past weeks and in the portfolio that Lisa introduced today. So you're pulling from all these different places to help that person live the best life. Okay, I hope you'll allow me to say just a couple of words on my experience using these tools, just kind of as Lisa was talking about. I will admit that I am not perfect and could certainly myself use some person-centered planning from time to time. Recently, I had quite a few changes in the job I am in now. And knowing that we were going to meet with you here today and participating with you over the past few weeks in these trainings, I took the portfolio and enlisted my family's help with some of those decisions. That was such a great thing. They were a few hours away, and so I sent it back to them, and they kept it for a few days. They sent it back, and I learned quite a bit about them, their individual dreams and goals, what they wanted for me, and how they thought they could support me. And also, as I said, I needed some support myself. So I then went to the pathway tool under pathway C, which addresses changes in a job, because that was what I was experiencing. And I came out knowing firsthand, and I'll just kind of pause here and tell you, I came out firsthand knowing that approaches like this, these person-centered planning approaches, support a person with disabilities, but can be used by everyone. I think I went through 8 of the dozen or so questions and then added some more of my own. Then as I got to that developer plan section, I got to brainstorm on what the next few weeks and the next few months could look like for me. So that's me. But recently, we rewrote some of our value statements that drive the work we do at DSPD. And one of them reads, individuals experiencing disabilities are the experts on their personal interests and preferences and should be supported to make informed, self-determined choices and to maintain control over all aspects of their life. I think there's some really important statements in there for us. And I hope that is what the portfolio and the employment pathway tool can do. So same kind of approach that Lisa shared before, a few questions for you. So the first question here, I think, is how can this tool help you and your family member to have the employment conversation? And again, if you feel like you can, we'll just put some answers in the chat and go from there. Give you a few more minutes here. And if you don't have an answer right away, I think that's okay. We're introducing some new tools here. And I think one of the questions that we did want to ask is, how might the portfolio that Lisa introduced and the DSPD employment pathway tool be used together? Maybe more to come. Yeah. I think the challenge as we go for the drop-in session is to complete the employment pathway tool for yourself, or with or for a family member, and connecting that with the portfolio. So thank you. I'll turn it back over to Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for presenting, and Brand as well for presenting those tools. And we look forward to seeing what you all have put together. And if you have any questions at the drop-in session in 2 weeks. And we've given you a lot of information today. We've given you 2 challenges to complete: the family perspective on employment portfolio and an employment pathway tool for your loved one. Feel free now, we have a few more minutes left in the hour. If you want to shoot out any questions you may have, or if you need access to any of those documents, we'd be happy to get those to you. I want to say thanks again to Lisa and Bryn. And then, yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to either post them in the chat or you can unmute yourself. And I'm going to stop the recording right now. So if any personal information comes up, it won't be captured or anything.